The big Friday premium. Here are the headlines. Columbus sets sail for world domination of the local spa. The Piggly Wiggly experience. No assistants were harmed in the making of this shop. Argentina stages world's worst ever coup. Possibly. And later in the program, find out why defrosting penguins are quitting their jobs to become frozen pizzas. Those are the headlines. If you're still awake, then press the red button.
Newsbang, a riot of facts in the riot act of truth. 1492.
On this day in 1492, Christopher Columbus set sail from Spain, embarking on a journey that would change the world forever. Or so he thought. Little did he know, he was actually setting off on history's most disastrous package holiday.
Sailing with a crew of 90 men, Columbus was convinced he'd found a shortcut to the spice markets of Asia. Instead, he stumbled upon the Americas, proving once and for all that men really won't ask for directions.
Upon landing in the Bahamas, Columbus and his crew were greeted by the native Taino people. "Welcome to paradise," they said. "Would you like a complimentary coconut?" Columbus, misunderstanding completely, replied, "Yes, I'll take all your gold and enslave your people, thank you very much."
The consequences of Columbus's blunder were far-reaching. Europe got tomatoes, chocolate, and syphilis. The Americas got smallpox, Christianity, and the concept of timeshares. Truly a fair exchange.
Eyewitness Rodrigo de Triana, the lookout who first spotted land, had this to say: "I shouted, 'Tierra, tierra,' and the admiral gave me a glass bead. A bloody glass bead. I should have kept my mouth shut."
1916.
The world of grocery shopping was turned upside down today as Clarence Saunders unleashed his diabolical self-service concept upon unsuspecting customers. Eyewitnesses report mass confusion as shoppers were forced to navigate aisles filled with tempting products armed only with primitive baskets and their own decision-making skills.
Local housewife Ethel Crumpet described the scene as absolute bedlam. She exclaimed, "I've been buying my turnips from Reginald the grocer for 30 years. Now I'm expected to pick them myself. What's next? Milking my own cow."
Reports suggest that store clerks, now rendered obsolete, have formed roving gangs, terrorizing customers who dare to reach for items on high shelves. The police have advised the public to shop in pairs and never turn your back on a tin of beans.
Experts warn that this radical Piggly Wiggly model could lead to widespread obesity as shoppers gorge themselves on readily available foodstuffs. One nutritionist exclaimed, "It's a disaster! People aren't meant to have this much access to canned peaches."
Odaude, 1930.
Argentina's military leaders today staged a daring coup d'état, overthrowing President Hipólito Yrigoyen in a bloodless revolution that left only 17 dead and 43 severely maimed. The coup, led by General José Félix Uriburu, was executed with surgical precision and minimal collateral damage, save for the complete obliteration of democracy.
Eyewitnesses report that Uriburu rode into Buenos Aires atop a giant llama, brandishing a constitution made of empanadas. "It was glorious," said Juan Empanada, a local street vendor. "He promised to restore order by replacing all traffic lights with military checkpoints."
The international community has responded with a mix of outrage and indifference. The League of Nations issued a strongly worded letter threatening to uninvite Argentina from its annual potluck dinner. Meanwhile, the United States has offered to send democracy in a can, available at all good supermarkets.
President Irigoyen, last seen fleeing the presidential palace in his pajamas, released a statement from an undisclosed location. "I would have gotten away with it too, if it weren't for those meddling military generals and their talking llama."
Early news bang, news that bites the hand that feeds it.
With a forecast as unpredictable as his choice of neckwear, here's our weatherman Shakanaka Giles to tell us what Mother Nature has in store for us this week.
Was this a important All right, let's get to it then. In the south, we're looking at a proper scorcher, the kind that'll have you sweating like a priest in a playground. Might want to pack a parasol and a pint of ice water, or you'll be redder than the Queen's hat at Ascot. Over to the Midlands, where the weather's feeling a bit under the weather. Expect a downpour so heavy, it'll have you wishing you'd invested in a kayak instead of a car. And with the Wimbledon finals just around the corner, the groundskeepers better have their mops at the ready. Up north, the forecast is a bit of a mixed bag, a bit like your grand's knitting. Chilly in the mornings, warm in the afternoons, and a 50-150 chance of sudden showers just to keep you on your toes. Might want to pack both your woolies and your sunscreen. And let's not forget our friends in Scotland, where the weather's as unpredictable as a Scotsman's temper. One minute it's sunny, the next it's sideways rain that'll have you wishing you were back in the pub. Best keep that umbrella handy, lads and lasses. In summary then, a scorcher down south, a proper soaking in the middle, and a mixed bag up north. Sounds like a typical British summer, if you ask me. And that's all the weather.
Ordre de 1930.
Argentina's democratic government was toppled today in a military coup. President Hipólito Yrigoyen was unceremoniously ousted by General José Félix Uriburu, citing allegations of corruption and economic mismanagement. The so-called September Revolution has sent shockwaves through the international community, with some nations condemning the action, while others seem oddly eager to cozy up to the new regime. For more on this unfolding crisis, we turn to our South American correspondent, Hardiman Pesto.
Martin, I'm here in Buenos Aires on this momentous day in 1930, where the streets are abuzz with confusion and excitement. I've just witnessed General José Félix Uriburu march into the capital with his troops, effectively ending President Irigoyen's rule.
What's the reaction from the people?
Well, Martin, I've been speaking to local fruit vendor Señor Juan Manzana, who tells me the coup has left a bitter taste in his mouth. Quite literally, as he's been stress-eating lemons all morning.
Pesto, we need facts, not fruit-based metaphors. What's the official word from the government?
Yes, I managed to catch up with a high-ranking official who wishes to remain anonymous. Let's call him El Presidente.
You mean the deposed President Irigoyen?
No, Martin. This is definitely not Irigoyen. This gentleman had a much more impressive mustache.
Pesto, are you telling me you've interviewed General Uriburu?
Well, I wouldn't say interviewed exactly. More like overheard while hiding in a broom cupboard.
For heaven's sake, Pesto! Can we get some actual information here? What about the economic situation?
Certainly, Martin. I've consulted with renowned economist Dr. Peso Inflado.
Thank you, Hardiman. The economic outlook is indeed grim. We're seeing a sharp decline in exports, particularly in our vital tango dancer sector.
Tango dancers are an export?
Oh yes, it's our second largest export after beef. Or was it vice versa? I always get my tangos and my steaks mixed up.
Dr. Inflado, how do you see this coup affecting Argentina's future?
Well, based on my calculations, I predict at least 7 more coups by Tuesday. It's going to be a very busy week for the military.
This is absurd. Pesto, can you please find someone who actually knows what they're talking about?
Of course, Martin. I've just spotted the British ambassador, Sir Nigel Crumpet. Sir Nigel!
Pesto, I highly doubt the British ambassador to Argentina is named Sir Nigel Crumpet.
You're right, Martin. My mistake. It's actually Lord Scone Biscuit.
That's it. I've had enough. Pesto, thank you for that utterly useless report from 1930s Argentina.
1916.
On this day in 1916, American entrepreneur Clarence Saunders unveiled the first self-service grocery store, Piggly Wiggly. Gone are the days of relying on shop clerks to fetch your tinned peaches. Now, customers can wander aimlessly through aisles, fondling produce at will. Has this revolutionary concept unleashed a monstrous horde of indecisive shoppers? For more, we go to our American correspondent, Melody Wintergreen.
This is Melody Wintergreen, reporting live from Memphis, Tennessee, where the grocery game changed forever. 108 years ago, Piggly Wiggly opened its doors, unleashing a retail revolution that's more addictive than a bottomless jar of pickled pig's feet. Clarence Saunders, the visionary behind Piggly Wiggly, has created a veritable Pandora's box of shopping delights. Customers are no longer meekly requesting their groceries like supplicants at an altar of canned goods. They're roaming free, baskets in hand, like ravenous raccoons let loose in a pantry. It's a carefully choreographed chaos. The layout, a maze of temptation, guides shoppers past every possible craving. No longer are we at the mercy of a clerk's glacial pace. We're empowered to fondle the fruit, squeeze the charmin, and contemplate the existential dread of 1,000 cereal choices. The checkout, a marvel of efficiency. Customers pay for their loot, no longer held hostage by the tyranny of the shop clerk's chit-chat. It's a brave new world of retail therapy, where the impulse buy is king. Of course, not everyone's embracing this newfound freedom. Some folks, bless their hearts, are still lost in the aisles, pining for the days of personal service. But Saunders has foreseen this. He's trained his staff to guide these bewildered souls, transforming them from passive shoppers into captains of their own culinary destiny. The proof is in the pudding, or rather, the overflowing shopping carts. The Piggly Wiggly model is a hit. The future of grocery shopping is here, and it's a future where the customer is always right, even when they're standing in the wrong aisle, blocking traffic with a cart full of impulse buys. Melody Wintergreen, live from Piggly Wiggly, ground zero of the grocery revolution.
Newsbang, washing the blood of ignorance off the hands of knowledge.
Penelope Windchime regales us now with a tale of nautical nonsense and accidental geography that changed the world.
Penelope Windchime here with a blast from the past that'll make your leaves curl. On this day in 1492, Christopher Columbus, that intrepid sailor with a penchant for getting lost, set sail from San Sebastian de la Gomera. Picture this: 90 sweaty men crammed onto wooden tubs, floating across the vast blue bathtub we call the Atlantic. Their mission: to find a shortcut to Asia and corner the market on cinnamon sticks and peppercorns. Little did they know they were about to stumble upon a whole new world. Columbus, standing proudly on the deck, his hair blowing majestically in the wind, completely oblivious to the fact that his map was upside down. The crew, meanwhile, was busy inventing new sea shanties about scurvy and the joys of eating hardtack. After 5 weeks of bobbing about like a cork in a storm, they finally spotted land. But instead of silk-clad emperors and spice markets, they found paradise beaches and friendly locals. Columbus, ever the optimist, declared, "Close enough!" and promptly claimed everything in sight for Spain. The consequences are just a little thing called the reshaping of the entire world. European powers suddenly realized there was a whole new playground to squabble over. The Columbian Exchange kicked off, swapping potatoes for smallpox and tobacco for syphilis. Talk about a raw deal. For every tree Columbus chopped down, nature fought back with poison ivy and mosquitoes. It's the circle of life, folks. I'm Penelope Windchime, reminding you that sometimes getting lost can lead to the biggest discoveries and the biggest oopsies in history.
Newsbang, real truth in a world full of unreality.
And now, for a whimsical journey through history, we turn to our resident royal and historical raconteur, Sandy O'Shaughnessy.
Nice and easy. Good evening, and thrice good evening to you all. It's your old friend Sandy O'Shaughnessy here, coming to you live from the cozy confines of the Newsbang studios. A hearty hello to all our listeners, whether you're tuning in from the rolling hills of Donegal or the bustling streets of Dublin. And a special welcome to those of you who've just switched over from Martin Bang's riveting report on the mating habits of the lesser-spotted woodpecker. You've traded one type of pecking for another, I dare say. Now gather round, my dear friends, as we take a jolly jaunt back in time to the year 1566. It was on this very day, 458 years ago, that the Ottoman Empire bid a fond farewell to its longest reigning sultan, Suleiman I. Or should I say, Suleiman the Magnificent. The man certainly knew how to make an exit, didn't he? Passing away at the ripe old age of 71, he left behind a legacy as long as the queue at O'Malley's chip shop on a Friday night. Speaking of long reigns, I received a delightful letter from Mrs. Fitzgerald in Kilkenny. She writes, "Dear Sandy, my husband's been on the toilet for 3 hours now. Should I be worried?" Well, Mrs. Fitzgerald, unless your husband's trying to outdo Suleiman's 46-year reign from the comfort of your water closet, I'd say it might be time to check if he's fallen in. But back to our Ottoman friend, Suleiman. Now, here was a chap who knew how to multitask, conquering empires, writing poetry, and probably inventing the kebab while he was at it. He expanded his empire faster than my Aunt Mabel's waistline at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Belgrade, Rhodes, Hungary. He collected territories like I collect embarrassing stories about the Newsbang interns. And let's not forget his architectural achievements. The man built more mosques than there are pubs in Temple Bar, and that's saying something. His crowning glory, the Süleymaniye Mosque in Istanbul, still stands today. It's a bit like our own O'Connell Street spire, only with a bit more history and a lot less bird droppings. But every rose has its thorn, and even Suleiman had his fair share of domestic squabbles. Keeping the Ottoman elite happy was trickier than trying to herd cats at a dog show. And don't even get me started on his foreign policy. Navigating conflicts with Persia and the Holy Roman Empire, it's enough to make Brexit negotiations look like a friendly game of tiddlywinks. As we remember Suleiman on this day, let's raise a glass of non-alcoholic beverage. It is a Muslim empire after all, to the man who put the magnificent in the magnificent. May we all leave behind a legacy as enduring as his. Preferably without the conquering and pillaging, mind you. And on that note, my dear listeners, it's time for me to bid you adieu. Remember, history is just a series of todays that happened yesterday. So make your today count, even if you're not planning on conquering any empires. This is Sandy O'Shaughnessy, signing off with a hearty, see you later, alligator, in a while, crocodile. Good night, and may your dreams be as grand as a sultan's palace.
All over the country, for everyone.
News Bang, pulling back the veil on the shabby tale of yesterday's truths.
And finally, a look at tomorrow's papers. The Times. French in big Russian walkabout blunder. There's a map there of a very long walk. The Telegraph. Germans change their minds over Britain in plain argument. The Guardian. Tutu is top Anglican in South Africa. That's a photograph of a man with a nice smile. The Mail. Moscow petrol shortage hits birthday plans. And I see they've a cartoon of a tank. The Express go with clergyman's pet donkey foils robbery attempt. And that's a picture of a nice donkey. That's it. And a reminder that due to essential engineering work, Newsbang will be broadcast tomorrow on loudspeakers in the toilets of all major railway stations. Until then, an abrasive goodbye.
Tune in next time for more artificially intelligent hilarity. Newsbang is a comedy show, written and recorded by AI. All voices impersonated. Nothing here is real. Good night.